All right, maybe we'll start a minute early. Welcome everyone to another webinar for WinBid Pro. This is the markup report and the second of two, and I apologize for that first one because I know we had trouble with the broadcast because I was in a Wi-Fi spot that was no good. So no more of that. So let's actually go back and review some things that we talked about the first time. So let's see here. So the markup report. So remember that anything you do has to be updated. If you change the elevations, you have to re-optimize. So you have to get the elevation parts, re-optimize to get your new material count and cost, money costs and all that. You don't have to actually print the cut list, but you do have to process, and then it figures. And when you get into this optimizer, it actually updates the markup information with the, or actually the job summary is what it's doing, is updating that information with the glass and metal numbers and counts. So that's one thing that getting into the optimizer and just closing it actually goes through and updates the final parts and final glass automatically. You can of course go into your final parts and glass and review things or even print that, and obviously that will update the job summary information as well. But so the other thing was, I mentioned in the last webinar, was making sure your pricing is set, because before you get to your markup report, you obviously want all your multipliers to be good and your glass pricing to be set and all that. So that's something that you can see right here. I've got a 1 multiplier, so that wouldn't quite work if I'm trying to get accurate pricing for a bid. So I'm going to filter down. Let's go over this one more time. I'm sure you guys know this, but if I want to change just my door multipliers, I would filter by DO, and that gives me all the door and door frame parts. And then I can clear the filter. Oh, and I think I mentioned at the last webinar that one way to do it is change the factor for everything. Like let's say it is at 0.55 for everything, and replace the whole list or update the whole parts list with 0.55, and then you can go in and just change one thing like your stocks. So if stock material needs to be something different like 0.45, it's easy to update just that, and then everything else has the 0.55. So think about doing things like that when you're working with pricing and changing multipliers, etc. The final glass, oh, I didn't put any glass in the elevations, I think. So final glass, same thing. So let's just go, I'm going to do it by elevation real quickly. I can do, let's see, I'm in a 45 TU, so that, oops, that would be a 1. Let's just put this kind of glass in the whole elevation. I can skip here and put glass in there real quick. So it's going to be the same glass, but different sizes. And it's the same thing with this. If I've got 0 pricing for glass, that's obviously going to give me a 0 glass price for the markup report. So I want to change my glass to something so that I have some pricing there to work with. Okay, so now I've got glass pricing. I've got my final parts or multipliers are all set. So now when I get into my markup report, I should see some good numbers in here. So one thing is I have no defaults, so everything's kind of 0. So this is what we didn't really talk much about in the last webinar. So in your system defaults, in the main menu here, I've never set my defaults for the system, which markup percentages, sales tax, all those are related. So this is kind of the key of this second webinar is getting your defaults set the way you want, and then those will just carry over to any new job that you make or any new job you want to get your numbers for. So let's say if my metal and miscellaneous markup's 25%, glass is say 30%, labor is 45%, and other costs can be 25%. So whatever numbers we're putting in here, if I've got a 10% surcharge that I need to add to my metal and glass, that's good. If my sales tax is 8%, if I don't tax my labor or my outside costs, I can leave those 0. And then you might remember that little settings like whether it automatically opens the program with a job or it gives you your list of jobs when you open it, those things are set here. When I'm exporting something, it gives me a message like where the file is created and what file name it has. I can suppress that message if I want by checking this box. So now here's a couple important things. And exclusion notes that show up in your markup report. So you can have it default to whatever you type in here. This is my this is my company, and there are some exclusions. So that's going to show up in every single markup report just because it's looking here for a default message to put in there. So whatever you want it to say. All pricing is final. Bids are good for 60 days or something like that. So you can put whatever message you want in there. And then if we go to the markup report and look, we don't see anything. So let's go, where are we, 0.26. Let's go back to system defaults to make sure it's saved, and it did. Now normally what's supposed to happen is when we go to the markup report and I go to my job notes, if these are blank, it's supposed to put something in there. So let's type something in here. I'm going to type something in here, and I'm going to save it, and then we're going to get back in. Okay, so I've got something in there now. Now I'm going to blank it out, and then I'm going to hit done. And then I'm going to go back in the markup report. Okay. So it's funny, I was just testing this in the 0.5 version of the software. So let's go, oops, wrong thing. Let's go to our website here. And I'm going to apply the 0.5 patch. And I'm going to see if maybe it is a bug. And some of you guys might know that we pulled the 0.6 update because there was a couple problems. I don't remember this being one of them. But that's one of the reasons we leave the older patches on the website, is if there is a problem that's just, preventing you from doing something you need to do in the software, we want to give you the ability to go back to a previous version. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. So let's go in. It's funny because I definitely don't remember that being a problem with 0.6, but anything's possible. So we're going to get back into that vendor, get back into the sample job, and I believe I left the markup report with the blanked out notes. So yes, I did. Okay. Well, one more thing to look at. So it's supposed to, basically, if it finds a 0, see how it populated these numbers? So the defaults were pulled in because it found zeros in the markup report that I'm using. So it's supposed to do the same thing with the job notes, so I need to figure out why it's doing that. It might be a problem. Let me do something real quick. And I know you guys probably know where this repair utility is. There's one that says fix problem opening program. What that does is it clears the user setting table, and the user settings table kind of keeps a lot of positioning of forms, whether you have the little box checked to suppress the messages for printing, exporting, things like that. A lot of those things are saved in the settings table. Some aren't, but a lot are. like remembering certain things about the program for you as a user. So that's in the settings, user settings table. So let's see if that was a problem that was preventing. It remembers like the last vendor you were using, the last job, all those kinds of things. So when we clear that user settings table, like this little checkbox, it remembered that I checked that before. It remembered what size my window was, things like that. So when you clear that user settings table, you're kind of starting with the defaults. Okay, I've still got my notes there, which should obviously stay. But now, if I go back to my markup report, yeah, now there's something else going on. So anyway, if there's something weird going on, it doesn't hurt to clear that user settings table with the repair utility. And you might have to like resize some screens or check a couple boxes again or something like that. But you're not going to lose any data or anything. But that's the idea behind the system defaults is if you have some values here and if you have something here, it's going to carry it over to the markup report every time you create a job. So let's just try that real quick. I want to create a new job. And first elevation, let's just pick whatever frame. And then I'm just going to do a quick opening. And then we're going to optimize. I don't really need to do glass. So let's go into the markup report now. Yeah, so it's just not carrying it over for some reason. Okay, so that'll be fixed in the 0.7 update anyway. So it's carrying over all your markups and percentages, which is the main thing. You can always type notes in, but so the other thing we looked at in the last webinar was that you can select contacts. And remember, you can add a new contact of any kind. You can call it, Buzz Lightyear architecture. And you can put whatever information in here, save that as a contact, and then select that contact to add the information to your markup report. And same thing with the architect, whether it's contractor or architect, you're basically just populating these fields here. And if it is a user, you can select it. If not, you can just type in whatever information you want. So it's pretty simple to add information to this form. And then obviously it saves it for this job. So those aren't default things because those are kind of job specific. So so that is how that works. And then, so labor, I never did the labor. So if I go ahead and calculate labor, well, this was a new job. Let's go back to that other one that's got more stuff to it. Sample job, 3 elevations. So I'm going to do labor here. This one probably had labor because I had to reprocess or reapply. So now if I just close this, it should update the labor numbers for this job, and it did. So you can always do the add to. Remember, it's something I mentioned in the last one, any field that's white is something you can type into. Anything that's grayed out is calculated. So you'd have to mess with your elevations or your final metal pricing, your final glass pricing, things like that, to your labor defaults to change any of those grayed out numbers. And one of the tricks was the total metal. So total metal is pretty easy. It's basically the addition of all these things: stock, miscellaneous, doors, and other. So we should see this number here change, which is obviously pulling from this number. If I add 200, it should be 3349 as soon as I tab out of that field or click out of it. So, and then that carries that number over to here. So my surcharge, which is 10%, is obviously the 334.92. And then my total material with surcharges would be the addition of all the metal material and the glass plus the surcharges. And that's what's going to be the number that we're going to work from to get our actual markup. These were surcharges. So our actual markup is coming from the total material. But that's a little tricky. So this is what I was going to say, is the metal and miscellaneous has a different, you can have a different markup rate than the glass, which you see I did here, so the 25 and 30. So if I were to figure out, let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go to the calculator. This is one thing I hate about Windows 8. But anyway, we go to calculator. So if I have my total, and it's doing the surcharge, I'm sorry, you can see right here, markup is included, the surcharge is included in the markup. So that is just the way it's done. So let's say total glass, I'm sorry, so total metal plus the surcharge, I'd have to add these numbers up. So the 3349.23 plus, oops, darn it, sorry, 3349.23 plus the actual surcharge, which is the 334.92, would equal 3684.15. So if I need to get my surcharge on that, I'm sorry, my markup on that, which is 25%, then I'm going to do my times 1.25. So now that total for that material, the total metal plus the surcharge marked up 25% is this number. So I'm going to add that to memory. So now, so you'll notice we're trying to figure out our, I should have done it differently. We're trying to figure out our total markup number, this 1408.16. So let's actually clear that. Sorry for the confusion here. So all I'm going to do this time, so I'm going to do 3349.23 plus 334.92. So that gives me the total metal plus the surcharge. Now I'm just going to do times the 0.25, the 25%. So that's the number that's contributing to this 1408.16. So now we're going to get, that's the metal portion of that number. So you can see how you can't just take that number and say, oh, it's 25% of this number, because it's not. Some of it's 25%, some of it's 30%. So the glass, for back over here at our calculator, is 1476.13 plus the surcharge of 147.61, which equals 1623.74. So we take that times the 30% times 0.3, which is 487.12, and we add that to the memory. Now we recall the memory and we get our actual material markup. So it's hard to take, to put every calculation and break it down with a certain size window, because I guess this window could have grown wider. We're starting to get away from the small monitors, like remember the old monitors that were 15 inches square, basically, or 4x3 they call them. Those things didn't hold much information at all. So in the beginning we were kind of limited by that size monitor as far as what we could show on the screen, and then as the monitors got bigger, the screens can, you can get a bigger form to show more stuff, but we still had to kind of be considerate of some of the people that didn't have the newer screens. So eventually all the forms can be a little bit bigger, or we can put more information on them. But for now, it felt like this is as much as we could put on here. So that's pretty much how that works. That's one of just the trickier ones. Outside cost is pretty simple because our outside costs over here, let's say it's $2,000 for contractor, $1,500 for equipment, miscellaneous of $500. That gives us $4,000. So that's an easy number that just carries over here, and we're taking 25% of that, which is simple $1,000. So labor is pretty simple. It's just one number. So really this total material was a tough one because we're taking two different markup percentages and applying it. Now tax is another thing that's kind of a little more complicated than it needs to be, just because for some reason we decided to have multiple tax values. But it's tough enough when you tax some things and not others, but when you make them different values, then it adds even more complexity to it. So the problem with that is when we go to print, all we can show is sales tax, basically. We're not going to show sales tax for, what do we got here? Sales tax for metal and miscellaneous, sales tax for glass. We're not going to break down the sales tax like that, so it's because nobody's used to it. So I think eventually we might just stick with one tax number just because that's easier, and then you can tell it what to tax and what not to, So that's how that works. So remember that this is the full-on report that shows, oh, look at this. So you'll notice our messages did get carried over. They're just not showing up in the form for some reason. So they're in the database for this job. So basically this job saved those notes that we had as defaults. It's just not showing them in the report. So let's see, on the screen here. So this is the exclusion. This is the note. These are section bits. Let's see what shows up. Oh, that's what shows up, an error. So let's go back to markup. There's always something with this software. So here's what I typed in. And then here's what shows. So interesting. Oh, there's 2 pages. So I'm going to go to the second page. I should see more notes. Yeah. So I didn't notice this on my other computer, so I'm going to have to look at it a little harder. But basically, the default notes are getting carried over. They're just not showing on this window for some reason on this computer. So I know I tested it on another computer before I started this, and it worked fine. So anyway, we'll get that fixed by the 0.7 update. So in the meantime, what else do we got? In the markup report, so you remember that you can check this box to not tax markup amounts. So right now, all these totals here, like this is the total markup. We add that to the total material, the total labor, the total to get our bottom line price. But that is included in what's getting calculated for tax. So if we check this box, we should see a lower amount pop up. And when I uncheck it, it's a little bit higher. So there's a difference of, what, $120 it looks like. So keep that in mind. And then the main thing for hiding all this stuff in the printout is checking that box there. So that makes everything show up on one page, obviously, because there's a lot less to show here. So here again is where we can just show one sales tax amount, just because it's too confusing to show a breakdown of sales tax. So so those are the main settings or things you can do with this form. The only tricky part about the calculation was just this total material and how that number is getting achieved when using surcharges. It's pretty simple when you're not getting surcharges. But so now exporting. Let's go to exporting because we didn't get to talk about that. In print reports, the export options. So you've obviously got all these ways to print your reports. I can do my markup report here. I can preview it. And if you ever want your reports to just get printed directly to the printer without previewing them, this is where you'd set it. So if I go here and I close it, and then I go into my markup report and hit print, then it's going to go straight to the printer. It's not going to preview for me. So I usually like to preview it, so I never really set that. But that's how you would do it. And then if you ever have a bunch of things set to print, like if you wanted your elevation or even your final parts, if you wanted that to go straight to the printer every time, you check that. select that. And if you ever want to print multiple reports at once, that's when you go into print reports here. You set all the things you either want to print or preview, and then you hit print preview, and it goes through each one at a time and prints it, previews it and prints it for you. So that was a request we had from the version 14 people that said, oh, is there a way I can, print all my reports at once? Well, this is kind of what we came up with to do that. So you can just make your settings on which ones you want to print at once and then hit print preview, and it goes through each report. So I think some people use it. Some people just like to see it on the screen before it prints. So that's how that works. And then if I want to unselect everything so that I literally have to pick it each time, then I hit unselect all. So export options. So we can create an Excel file. We can create a PDF file for the markup report. Obviously, you got all your different reports here that you can export to. You've got your exporting to GDS for their project management software. You've got your SawStop exporting. And remember that I can click a button, like let's say I want to go to a TigerStop. I can make that, create that report for the TigerStop. It does show me the message here, where it put it and what the file name is. And then for my markup report, I would actually go back. I can do it right here, actually. I can preview my markup report. And before it gets to the preview, it's going to show me what it created here. So it created the, well, that's another thing it does. It creates the SawStop cut list report basically first. And then it's going to create the XLS, the spreadsheet for the markup report, and it should do the PDF. Yeah, so it's showing me that message every time. Now let's try that. If we go back to system defaults and we say hide the message, let's go back and try that again. So we hit print reports. It's already set on preview. I'm going to preview it. So see how it didn't show us, instead of showing us the 3 messages for the cut list, TigerStop export, the Excel file, and the PDF file, it didn't show us any of it. But it did create them, because we can go here to our YKK folder. And these are so right now, let's go back to my, actually that's the wrong computer. Let's go to this computer. Oh, you know what? I am using I forgot what I was doing here. I'm using the vendor on my other computer. So this is an example. On my network, I just have another copy of WimDid Pro. I'm using the vendor from that computer right now, so it's easy just to select whatever vendor from whatever drive you want to use. But so when I export, it's creating an Excel folder, a PDF folder, and a TigerStop folder. So here's the TigerStop. A CSV is kind of like a spreadsheet. Oh, I don't have Office on this, so I can open it with WordPad. But this is just the way our export file to TigerStop would look. It's just got commas in between the things like the quantity, the cut length, the part number, the part type, things like that. My PDF, here's my markup report in PDF. And it looks exactly like it would on this, on the printout, and it looks exactly like the preview screen. So then the Excel file, since I don't have Office, I'm not sure what it's going to want to open this with. Nothing. Okay. Yeah, I need to load Open Office on this computer. So the one thing I was going to say about, let me do this. This might mess with things a little bit, but I'm going to go switch over to my other screen here so you guys can see it. It's a lot higher resolution, so I don't know how this is going to show up on your computers. But I'm going to go to my YKK folder. This is where I was on my other computer. And I'm going to go to the Excel folder. And this is the markup report. So I do have Excel on this computer. So this is what it looks like. It's a little different than I mean, it's not like a normal spreadsheet is the thing. Like these aren't formula. The reason it's showing hash marks here is because this column's too narrow. So I'm going to make this bigger, and then it's going to show me all the values there. So it looks exactly like it does on the printout. The problem with Excel is it's not a, like I say, a spreadsheet that has formulas. But, however, you can, like if you have your own markup kind of template and you have your own header with your logo and all that, you can at least copy this much. Like I can take all this, I can copy it, and let's say I'm in a new spreadsheet and it's got my information on it. I can at least paste that in there. It's going to put it the same layout, only the column widths are different. Like this column's bigger, so I can make it smaller. This one's bigger. And then this one doesn't show the number, so I can make it wider. So that's one thing you can do. You can copy and paste the information from the spreadsheet into another spreadsheet pretty easily. And if you did something like that, you could stick it in a Word document as well. And it would basically put a spreadsheet inside your Word document and just show all the values. The problem is you can't like change something and have it added up. Like if I change this, you'll notice it's not affecting anything. So it's just the way that the export works. It's actually a function of the, I'm not even going to save that. So I'm going to jump back to my other screen here. So it's a function of the report software that we use here in our program, and this is actually it right here. So this reporting software just has an export feature to Excel, and it really just creates a visual copy of the report. It doesn't try and move formulas. It doesn't try and do anything fancy. So that's one thing to remember. But I think that's it. That covers all the exporting. It covers the little intricacies in the markup report itself and how these numbers are calculated. And I know a few versions ago we had some problems here and there. And remember you've got these little summary numbers here: total perimeter feet, total square feet, cost per square foot, sell per square foot. That's all based on your markup and stuff. So, but I've gone through these numbers, upside down, and everything's getting calculated correctly now. So, and I'm using the 0.5 and the 0.7. I'll figure out why those notes aren't getting carried over from the default. But you could always leave the system defaults 0. But it's good to have them. Basically, if you put your defaults in here and you create your new job like we did here, and it brings it over, then I'm even going to print this, and we should see those defaults even down here too. Yeah, here they are. So here's the 2 defaults from our system defaults window. So it's going to carry over all these values that you put in there for defaults, and it's easy enough. I can just go in and change it to 10%, and it's just going to recalculate it on the fly as soon as I get out of the field that I just changed, and that'll show up on your printout. So it's easy enough to just change it on a job basis, but your defaults should always, it makes things easier when you put your defaults in, and every time you create a job, you know that it's just going to bring that information over. So just remember, you can always change things on the fly. You can add to these little white fields here, but anything else, you're going to have to go back to your job and figure out the costing or the quantities and things there, and that's how these numbers are generated in the grayed out fields. So that's it for the markup report. I'll post on our website what the next 2 webinars will be next month, and you guys can hopefully join us for those. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.